stepping outside your comfort zone is uncomfortable, but it's supposed to be, because how else or how better are you going to grow if you don't, right? We can't stay comfortable. We can't stay in the same spot and expect for things to change in our life if change is what we're looking for. Welcome to the Beyond Wellness podcast. I'm here today with Dave, my husband and co-owner of Wellington Natural Health. How you doing today, Dave?
Good. How about you?
Good. It feels kind of silly talking to you, seeing as you're like in the same building as me, right?
Right.
So today we're here. We want to talk about stepping outside of your comfort zone. Now we're probably going to utilize starting a new business or, specifics on this, but do you feel that, stepping outside your comfort zone with in any situation in your life is going to be a similar kind of situation?
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, this is the first time I've ever really been on a podcast or anything, so even right now is everything outside of my comfort zone. Um, but yeah, like you said, there's no growth, there's no change without conquering kind of that little bit of fear that comes along with the comfort zone.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Dave and I have stepped outside of our comfort zone multiple times, right? What would you say? Like you said before, maybe every 5 years we're changing something up and doing something different.
Yeah, it seems about every 5 years there's a big restart where we change jobs or move or buying or selling a property and learning valuable lessons along the way with all of that, for sure.
So what do you think was the most difficult one for you?
The most difficult one for sure was starting Wellington. I mean, leaving, our backgrounds in construction and all those things, and deciding to run our own business and start basically
Never having run a business before?
right, and basically starting from scratch. The whole thing, it was just a lot of, you can't really think too much about it, and you just kind of have to get started and keep learning and keep moving.
Right. I always find that whenever there's something new that I want to start or something new that, a new direction to go in, it's almost like you have this period of time where you're mulling over the idea and trying to figure out if this is right for you or wrong for you or all those kind of things. And then you get to a point where it's either a hard yes or a hard no. Do you find that where, if it's hard no, okay, then it just drops. But hard yes, it's like all you think about in your head is this new change and all these things that you want to do, and just everything in that direction starts showing up.
Yeah, I think in my mind it works a little different. I mean, I very much love to have different things all the time. So I find in my mind there's maybe a little less thinking and a little more just doing, right? And
Right.
then it's either going to work or it's not. At least you got in there and you got started, because I think a lot of the times we waste a lot of really good opportunities just because we didn't move on them, right? So
you think sitting there thinking about it for too long is just a waste of time then?
I wouldn't say a waste of time. I mean, every big decision should have a little bit of thought and discussion into it, but I mean, that's what makes us work so well together, is you like to plan and think it all through, and I'm half done. And
yeah, welcome to our marriage, everybody. We should do a podcast on how to work and live together at the same time.
Yeah, so it works out good. So
no, it's getting back to starting Wellington and how that looked. I mean, it's one of those things where we could have spent the time planning everything out, taking our time and, you know, doing the this, the that, and the other thing, step A, B, and C based on all of the entrepreneurial books and all those kind of things. But um, then basically, you know, we'd still be sitting here with no business, I think. It's one of those things where maybe your plan just to jump in and do, you know, just worked out for the best and you just kind of take the hits as they roll kind of idea.
Right? Yeah, it's definitely not for the faint of heart, that's for sure. And I think along almost not knowing all the rules and all the all the check boxes that you needed to check off before you got started, was probably more of a benefit than anything. Because I mean, if we were busy checking boxes, then it just, yeah, everything I think would have taken too long. And sometimes if the idea takes too long, it just loses momentum. So
It's
about,
fizzles out. Yeah.
yeah, it's just about kind of, yeah, that balancing act between a little bit of fear, a little bit of faith, and just the willingness, honestly, to learn and move.
So how do you find that faith falls into that? How do you trust in something that you have no idea what's going to happen? Like, where do you find that inside yourself?
Um, I don't know. For me, it's always there. I've done a lot of different things, and I've been fortunate. I've been rather successful in being able to accomplish anything that I've really put my mind out to do. Um, I mean, yes, again, there's a lot of lessons and a lot of lumps that go with that, but um, yeah, no, I think I've been pretty fortunate.
Yeah, the path's not supposed to be smooth, otherwise you wouldn't learn and grow as you go, hey?
Right.
Right. All right. So let's just say, what would you break things down, or how would we break things down to help people to, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for here?
I think what a lot of people get hung up on is the unknown and the fear of the unknown, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, whether it's a small change, big change, large decision, small decision, financial decision, um, it all comes with a little bit of uncomfortableness and usually a whole bunch of fear that's attached to that. Um, Now, whether that's a little bit of fear or a lot, it's just about, yeah, coming to terms with what that is. And maybe, maybe sometimes I think we get caught up and we label our excitement or maybe nervous excitement, and we just kind of relate that to fear and being uncomfortable and like, okay, this isn't going to work because it's just
Out.
too far out of my comfort zone to move forward. So I
Right.
think
Yeah,
if we
because
can, address our feelings on the situation and maybe change the emotion involved in the decision, that um, maybe we could mitigate the fear a little bit to make things a little bit easier on ourselves.
right. Yeah, 'cause, like, just a little bit of, like, in your brain, those sensors for fear and anxiety and excitement all kind of feel the same, don't they?
Yeah, they're all pretty close. I mean, you start using all these words to describe feelings, and it's pretty easy to change the word if you can change the feeling towards it a little bit, right? So instead
Right.
of fear, we can use
Yeah.
excitement, and kind of bring that anxiety level down, right? So it's,
Let's convince yourself to use a different word.
yeah, yeah. If we can change our
Yeah.
labels and change our emotions, and yeah, there's nothing we can't really accomplish.
Well, it's true. So, what would be your number one suggestion for someone to kind of start tackling that? You think speaking to someone, like,
Um, you know
what,
what? You can
how do you filter that out?
yeah, I mean, you can speak to someone. You can do, man, you can read books, you can do all kinds of things, but um, yeah, if it doesn't feel right in here, if you can't start here and have a good um, feeling about it, then it's going to be hard to convince your brain that, yes, this is what I have to do and this is what's going to be, most beneficial for me in the future. Um, because we can talk to whoever we like and, you know, either dictate the narrative a bit to either convince ourselves that this is a good idea or convince ourselves it is. Um, but yeah, I think
Or
as
is
long as the feeling is there, and that's probably the best start.
well, I guess that's the thing too, is like anybody who you hear, any successful person that has, accomplished anything great, they were not comfortable with it at that time either. You know what I mean? Like it's not like everybody just decides they're going to do something great one day and it just naturally happens without any kind of anxiety or any kind of worry or any kind of, you know, what if this isn't the best thing to do? Right? Like it's just
Oh, exactly. There's ups and
it's a natural response to.
yeah, there's ups and downs for all of it the whole way. I mean, you know, sometimes you wake up for a week straight and everything you did, it was the best decision you ever made in your life and you wouldn't change anything for the world, and then you wake up the next morning and you're like, what have I
That
done?
would change your
What have
mind.
I done? Why did I do this? Now why am I here? But
Right.
um yeah, ups and downs, being flexible is probably one of the biggest attributes you can have. Um, I think that being able to move and change and grow as needed is something that's required. Because if you plan
What
for A, B, and C to happen, and you're not able to move or you're not able to change if something doesn't go right, then you get kind of stuck and you get defeated, and then all these other emotions start to happen, and next thing you know you're spiraling out of control and not really sure where to go or what to do.
right.
So I've
So you
yeah,
mean like if you've got plans or schedule or something along those lines, like if those don't pan out, is that what you mean? To be flexible with just how the change naturally can come.
yeah, yeah. So if ABC doesn't work, maybe A, D, F, G will work. You know what I mean? Like it's not having like these hard sets of rules or guidelines that you're trying to live by. It's about
Okay.
just taking the situations as they come and making the best of them.
Dave has taught me this lesson over and over, and I think it's finally starting to set in.
Man,
Right? Being a type A personality, like that was the hardest part for me was if I had a concrete plan, then that made me feel better about being unsure of what was going to happen in the future. Right. So I figured if I had the concrete plan, then obviously everything would just follow that plan and everything would work out well. But then a roadblock will come and my plan would get derailed and I would lose my mind. And Dave would calmly remind me, everything is going to be fine, but we can't control the outcome of absolutely every decision, especially when you're making these decisions with other people, right?
yeah,
And that's most of the time we're not just making these decisions for ourselves or by ourselves. It's going to affect, potentially spouses, children. If you've got a business, for example, or you're going out into the world, it's going to affect other people, people who work with you, people who work for you, you know, all these different things.
yeah,
So I'm grateful for you for teaching me
yeah,
that and helping me through that because now it just seems like when something happens that was unexpected, you just kind of sit back and go, okay, let's just absorb this for a few minutes and see how things go because, it doesn't completely change the entire narrative just because it's not going as comfortably as you'd like it
Yeah, I
to.
mean, we all have, no matter what we're doing or what we're starting or what direction we're into, we have a start point and we have an end point. And, it's not very often that the line between the 2 points is straight and smooth and right. It's
Again,
all over the place. And there's a couple loops in there and all kinds of things. So it's, yeah, as long as you have your start kind of established and what you want at the end, if you can flow with the rest and just make the best possible decisions for yourself at those times and trust in the fact that everything is going to work out for the best, then yeah,
right.
I think that's probably the best plan you can have.
And I guess the end, like when you say being okay with how things are going to be at the end, this could be what, like how you planned for things to be, like which direction you wanted to go, or necessarily being okay with some change happening in there, or what if things go negatively? What if things, you know, don't go as planned?
Well, no, and I think it's like having your end, like so you know what you want at the end, right? You know what you
Right.
want your business to be like. You know what you want whatever goal you're trying to reach, you know what that goal is. And then everything in between that just is. But as long as you have a clear picture in your mind of where you want to be when it's all over, that
Wow.
the rest will fall into place. You'll
Right.
learn some lessons along the way for sure, but yeah, it'll all fall into place.
And then probably when you get there, because then all the plans will change. Right?
Well, exactly.
If we
Yeah,
learned anything, that's just basically,
yeah. You'll get to where you thought you wanted to be, and you're there, and then you realize, oh, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. I think I
right.
would rather do this. So that's fine. You've gotten to your end goal, and now you've just moved the goalpost somewhere else, right? So same process. Just keep moving and keep following your heart, and yeah, you'll know when you
And
get
I guess it
there,
starts the whole thing over because you just put yourself right back outside of your comfort zone that you just created for yourself, right?
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think there's something to be said for, the excitement and the ups and downs rather than kind of the, sometimes the day to day routines that we get stuck in. And yeah, when maybe we don't live as much as we think we are, or as much as we'd like to.
Well, that boils down to another topic of basically, if you just sit and stay and, you're stagnant, no matter which area of your life that you're in, you're choosing unhappiness essentially because you're allowing that fear to be the most important part. You're allowing that fear to make the decision rather than stepping into that zone and, taking a little bit of a chance. Some chances are obviously bigger than others, like, right, starting a business versus eating a different kind of sandwich each day. But you got to start somewhere, right?
Yeah, but I mean, if you actually start paying attention to those feelings, like, sometimes you may realize that you have the same amount of fear towards different varieties of change, right? And it's not what you're doing, it's just the fact that you're doing something different.
Correct.
So, and yeah, if you can start paying attention to those, it'll be like, oh, okay, well, this fear is the same fear that I had when I drove a different way to work or decided to try a different restaurant or whatever. Just like that same uneasiness that kind of sets you a little bit off balance. Yep.
So you almost need to learn your comfort zone then, touch base with yourself and kind of reflect and figure out what that looks like.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm no expert by any means, but yeah, we've been doing it enough to where, yeah, you get used to it for sure.
Yeah. So I always find, and I think we have a different opinion on this, which is why I think it's going to be good to discuss. But if I choose to step out of my comfort zone, I always look at what the worst potential case scenario could be.
Mhm.
And if I'm okay with that, then I call it an exit plan. I don't think you like that term. But for me, in my head, if I've got an exit plan that if something messes up, then I will be able to, do A, B, and C, again, my plans. And then I'll be right back to where I am now. So it's almost like I can make my decision and I can retract it, which is perfectly okay.
Right.
But how do you feel about that kind of situation? Because you seem like the type that'd be like, once we're in, we're in. Let's go.
Well, and
Yeah.
that's the biggest thing. And I mean, some of our biggest fears are either judgment or failure, right?
Correct.
And
Yeah.
as long as you can make yourself okay with failure, then trying is not so scary. You know,
Well, failure isn't that big of a deal. I mean, if you don't
well,
ever try anything new, we failed at a million
yeah,
things, right? Just everybody in general has failed at a million things. It's just, I guess it's how you look at
but I
the
I think
severity.
there's a lot of people out there who haven't failed at a million things. They've stuck
But that's true.
with some of the things that they know that they're good at, things that they're successful with, and you know, maybe they'll be there for the rest of their lives, and that's totally cool. That's just where you want to be. That's where you're comfortable. But
Okay.
I mean, yeah, if I start something new tomorrow and make it a week, a month, or a year, and it all falls apart in front of me, then it's on to the next thing. Yeah, there's no time to sit there and be like, well, I should have done this and I should have done that and I should have done the other thing. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? You've made those
Move on to the next.
choices, you've learned those lessons, and maybe it wasn't the right place or the right time. So yeah, keep moving. Just keep going.
You would have needed to experience that at some point in order to understand,
Yeah.
maybe the direction you were supposed to be going in,
hmm
right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All
That's
lessons learned
very,
along the way.
I like that outlook. I do. It, it kind of puts into perspective that we're not always supposed to know which direction we're supposed to go,
Yeah.
and just remaining present one day at a time, going in the direction that we want is kind of, the best case scenario, right? If you change your mind tomorrow, then that's great. But if you tried today and you figured out what you did want or you didn't want, then it kind of gives further direction to, where to step next, where to go
Right.
next.
Yeah, and I mean, like I say, I'm not an expert, and what works for me may not work for you, or may not work for somebody else. But yeah, just keeping a positive outlook on anything you do on a daily basis is probably just one of the best places to start.
Right.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say, I feel that you're pretty fearless. And that's why I wanted to have this conversation with you, because I do feel that you're a bit of an expert. I feel that your positivity and your outlook on things and just your ease of going with the flow and just, kind of taking things as they come, um, that's like your superpower. I don't think you realize how calm you are. And I find that, you've taught me so much in this direction and in this area
And
that, you know, just on a day to day, if I'm flying off the handle or don't know where to stop, I just ask you, what would you do in this situation, or what's your outlook on this? And you kind of have a way of just this wisdom
right.
of,
Yeah.
right, it's just your wisdom of how, that's what we're going to call it from now on. Dave's wisdom of how.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, sometimes your best action is no reaction.
that's true.
Right.
Just sitting back and actually allowing yourself to think about it
Mhm.
and kind of absorb and maybe do the pros and cons or the this or that or whatever you like to call it, and
Yeah.
you know allow. I think that's where so many people get caught is they can't disconnect from their emotions for long enough to actually take a look at the scenario. Right? Like, I forget which book it was. I think it was Living Untethered, where Micah Singer speaks about, he talks about, hold on, my notifications, I forgot to turn them off. He speaks about how we always want our external environment to match our internal environment, because our internal environment is always looking for this state of calm or this state of comfort, right? And then when something on the external disrupts that internal calm, that's when the emotions come in. That's when we start flying off the handle, reacting with like anger or however, right? Crying, different emotional responses. But what he suggests is if you can actually acknowledge the fact that, you know, your internal environment is still at a state of, you know, comfort or balance, just because the external has happened doesn't mean you have to allow it to disrupt the internal.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And, I think too is like, no matter how comfortable you are with yourself and your situation, I mean, what you feel inside is still what you feel inside. Like, still a little bit nervous about doing this podcast, still a little, fluttery inside. I mean, how are you going to
Right.
react to that? Are you going to like shut
Right.
down and, freak out, or just,
Feel like that'd be the easy way
right?
out.
It's easy to say,
Yeah.
no, not doing it. I'm out. But I mean, if we can just keep calm and keep moving, then yeah, it'll figure itself out.
I like that.
That
All right. So I think that that was an excellent conversation. I really appreciate you coming on and, you know, being open about this stuff, because I do feel that um, talking about discomfort can be uncomfortable.
for sure.
Right? And, putting yourself out there and explaining that there's been times where things have gone well and things have not, that's, it's even difficult to acknowledge sometimes.
Mhm.
It can bring up, whole other topics on how to deal with the day to day and so on and so forth, right?
Right. Right. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
that was one thing that I got kind of, I had to be, or I got to a point where I was just comfortable with, speaking about the pluses and the minuses of my life, right?
Right.
Used to be pretty closed off, didn't want to let anybody really know what I was thinking or anything like that. And, for the most part, I still don't let anybody know what I'm thinking. But if someone's going to ask, and then they're going to ask me an open and honest question, I'm going to give them an open and honest answer. Because I'm just not scared of the conversation. I'm not worried about opening up and accepting, or just looking at, maybe some of my filters or things that I could have done better, or things that I completely destroyed. But yeah, it's all learning and just being comfortable with yourself.
So if you had one piece of advice that you could give to anybody who's, in that position of choice and change right
Go
now,
ahead.
what would you say to them?
Be honest with yourself. I think that is probably hands down the best thing you can do, is be honest with yourself and just go from there.
That's a great piece of advice.
Yeah, then,
Well, thank you for being on the show with me today, Dave.
yeah, thanks for having me.
You. And I just wanted to ask, what does wellness mean to you?
Um, balance from your internal environment, I think, from your external, and just, yeah, controlling, just controlling yourself to the point where, yeah, you can kind of let things go a little, not be so rigid.
Control to not control.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for being here today.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. And thank you all for joining us.